If you're walking in late, I hate kids. I hate them so much, it's my whole thing. And what surprises me is now that I'm getting older, I've got friends, family members having kids of their own, and I don't judge. Throw your life away. What surprises me is these people will text me pictures of their kids. Anthony, I want to see this. Send. I never want to see that. The only time a kid shows up on my phone and I'm happy about it, Amber Alert. Otherwise, do not get my hopes up.
Good morning. It's Thursday, Jordan Peterson Thursday, April the 9th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and Jordan Peterson. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you, Varney and Company.
He picks it up. Stu, take it away.
All right. Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. There's a 2-week ceasefire in place. It looks fragile, with the Iranians putting out contradictory and defiant statements. All right. Face-to-face talks start in Pakistan Saturday. J.D. Vance leads the American team. He faces Iran's parliament speaker and foreign minister. The Iranians appear to be playing for time. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Iranian officials insist they are going to enrich uranium. President Trump says our military force will stay in place, and if the Iranians can't come to a deal, the fighting will start again. Here's the market reaction. Remember, there was a huge rally for stocks Wednesday, only a minor pullback at this point today. I should tell you that the PCE inflation indicator suggested inflation is little changed, running at 2.8% over the last year. The Dow, down 160, minor loss for the S&P, minor loss for the NASDAQ. Oil, well, it's on the rise, but it's still below, only just below, $100 a barrel. 99.64 is the current quote. As for gas, 4.16 nationwide for regular. California has moved up to 5.92, perilously close to $6 a gallon. That's California for you. 5.92, right. Diesel, that's coming in at 5.68, another couple of cents higher. Bitcoin, $71,000 last time we checked, 71.2 right now. The 10-year yield's under 4.30. It's at, it's right at 4.30. The 2-year coming in, let me see it on the screen. I'll tell you what it is. It's 3.78. On the show today, the president facing intense opposition to the war back home. Senate Minority Leader Schumer says it is a colossal failure. He plans a war powers vote next week to rein in the war effort. A dramatic development in AI, Anthropic has actually pulled back its new Mythos platform. Researchers found that it had a mind of its own. Unasked, it developed detailed plans to break into thousands of web browsers and operating systems, and it did it all in a matter of hours. It's a hacker's charter. What if it were to fall into the hands of a hostile power? It is Thursday, April the 9th, 2026. Varney and Company is about to begin.
And that was Stuart Varney, Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. There's something profoundly unsettling and yet liberating about waking up to the reality that you've been manipulated, that you've been used. Not respected, admired perhaps, but only insofar as you serve a purpose in someone else's narrative. And it's strange because we don't like to think of ourselves as victims, especially the conservative. That deeply feeling, deeply caring soul who always assumes the best in others, who offers grace when judgment is deserved, who stays far longer than they should. Empathy is a virtue, no doubt. It allows us to understand one another, to reach across the divide of individuality, and resonate with the pain and struggle of another human being. It is the foundation of compassion, of forgiveness, and respect. But what happens when empathy is weaponized? What happens when a person who cannot or will not reciprocate that empathy encounters someone who cannot stop giving it? That's where things become dangerous. That's where empathy, ungoverned by discernment and boundaries, becomes a breeding ground for tyranny. It begins suddenly. The conservative feels the unspoken hurt in others and responds intuitively. A gesture of comfort here, a silence maintained there, often at the expense of truth. They believe, often unconsciously, that by softening their own edges, they can reduce the suffering of those around them. And in ordinary relationships, that tendency can create harmony. But the bad Democrat doesn't operate that way. They don't reciprocate, they exploit. And the conservative, precisely because of their high sensitivity to the emotions of others, becomes the perfect host. The bad Democrat identifies compassion as a resource, not as a gift to be treasured, but as a tool to be used. They test the limits of the conservatives' compassion and forgiveness. They engineer guilt-provoking anxiety and create cycles of emotional turmoil, not always through overt cruelty, but more often through subtle manipulation. The withholding of affection, the sowing of confusion, the reframing of reality. And the conservative, rather than pulling away, leans in. They try harder, they rationalize, they self-sacrifice. Why? Because deep down, the conservative assumes responsibility. That's their moral compass. If someone is angry, they must have failed to soothe them. If someone is distant, they must have said something wrong. The bad Democrat exploits that compass like a puppeteer pulling strings. They teach the conservative to abandon truth for the sake of peace. But it is never real peace, only the absence of conflict in exchange for the presence of control. And this is where the tyranny takes root, because the conservative, who once had a sense of self, gradually becomes disoriented. They begin to question their own intuition, their perceptions, even their memories. They live in a constant state of second-guessing, and because they see pain in the bad Democrat, often a very real pain, albeit one masked behind aggression or charm, they stay. They believe that if they can just understand more, absorb more, they can heal what is broken. But you cannot heal someone who's committed to using your healing energy as leverage. You cannot negotiate with someone who only sees your empathy as currency. And empathy without boundaries, empathy that does not include responsibility to the self, becomes self-betrayal. It enables a bad Democrat to continue a pattern that is fundamentally parasitic. There's a brutal irony here. The conservative believes that they're helping. They believe they're being noble, righteous even. But in refusing to set limits, in refusing to demand accountability, they are actually complicit in the bad Democrats' perpetration. They reinforce the very delusions that destroy the possibility of authentic connection. That's the terrible paradox. The more empathy the conservative gives, the more power they hand over to the bad Democrat, and the less of themselves remains intact. And the bad Democrat, they become emboldened. Each time the conservative forgives without consequence or accepts blame that isn't theirs. Silence is their own pain to protect the bad Democrat's ego. The bad Democrat is validated. They learned that the world should revolve around them. They believe their grandiosity is justified. Their manipulation is clever. Their cruelty is deserved. The conservative's empathy becomes the soil in which bad Democrat entitlement grows unchecked. At its worst, this dynamic becomes a psychological prison. The conservative internalizes the belief that they must continue. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Dr. Berg.
The worst drink for your liver is not soda with high fructose corn syrup, and it's not even beer or wine. There's something that is way more deadly. Drinking this is the fastest way to destroy your liver. 2 shots per day will rapidly destroy your liver because your liver gets overwhelmed and has to break down and digest a toxic byproduct called acetaldehyde, which kills liver cells, causes inflammation, and overwhelms the liver's ability to regenerate. The worst drink for your liver is hard liquor.
And that was Dr. Berg. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, motivation.
Hey, you watching that new show? No. You see the news about those people? Nah. You going to that event? Nope. You going to that party? No. Why? What's wrong? Absolutely nothing. I'm focusing on me. I'm trying to become great. I'm not where I want to be, and I ain't stopping till I get there. If you want to go to the next level, you're going to have to require more of yourself than ever before. You're going to have to challenge yourself. You're going to have to stretch in new ways. You're the only person who's ever going to challenge yourself to do something different and something new and something that's harder. And yet at the same time, that energy, those nerves, that anxiousness, that stress, that struggle, that challenge. Some people, when they feel that, they shut down. And other people realize that that is the energy that is giving them the fuel to be present, to get engaged, to pay attention, to be focused, to drive. And that energy, if you haven't felt that for a while, is because many people are just playing safe. And they're playing so safe that life got boring, that their business declined, that their career isn't going up. And so often we'll blame society, we'll blame social media, we'll blame everything that we can to avoid the reality that we're not locked in and just showing up.
You're casual. And until you decide you're going to win, nothing's going to change.
If I want something, I will go after it, no matter what it costs me. You have to disconnect from your emotions, you have to disconnect from your feelings, and you have to disconnect from the world. You got to learn to block things out and concentrate.
Now I'm serious. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to make this happen. This is where I do it or I don't do it. This is my place. You got to decide you want to win.
If you really want to get ahead, it's going to take another level of commitment. If you want to earn 10 times more, you're going to have to go to 10 times more commitment in that area. You have to decide, what is it specifically that I'm willing to give up and move out of the way now to focus on this thing, to make it a success, to truly work harder in this area and smarter in this area. Getting rid of distractions. Stop believing that we can all multitask and do 50, 70 different things. It's not true. The most successful people in the world, they have a very defined area of specialty. They focus and they say, this is my thing. Olympians tend to be Olympic athletes in one area. Why? Because it takes that much commitment in one area to become great.
I want you to stop crying. I want you to stop complaining. If ain't nobody else giving more, you give more. You give more effort. You give more time. You give more dedication. Many of you are only tapping into 60% of your greatness, and you're looking at a world that's giving you back 60%, and you're upset. You should be pissed at yourself, because if you're only giving 70%, then you're only getting 70%. If you're only giving 80%, you're only getting 80%. You reap what you sow. All of us are created equal. Some of us just grind. Some of us don't make excuses. Some of us don't surrender. Some of us don't give up and give in. What we do with the pressure is we say, I gotta take it, and I gotta take it to another level. I woke up one day and stopped making excuses. I woke up one day and stopped playing the blame game. I woke up one day and looked at the man in the mirror and was like, yo, bro, what are you doing? Wake up. It's showtime. Let's go.
You must always make sure that you switch gears from learning to deciding quickly. A lot of people, they have clarity on too much. They're overwhelmed with all the things they could do. A lot of overwhelm comes from overconsumption and too little decision.
The difference between people who talk about it and people who do it is one simple word: application. They hear it, they digest it, and when they digest it, boom, they do something with it.
We gotta move. We gotta decide. Clarity is strengthened with real decisions. Clarity, when it's locked in as a decision, as a pattern, as a discipline, as a commitment, that feels good.
The word decide comes from Latin. It's just like incision. It means to cut off from. When you decide you're going to do something, you cut off any other possibility. You put yourself in a state that if you want to take the island, you burn your boat.
And that was motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, some meditation.
Most people celebrate themselves on the good days. But the real strength, the kind that quietly shapes your life, is in how you hold yourself on the days you feel hardest to love. So today, take a moment to truly acknowledge and embrace the quiet resilience that has carried you this far. Take a slow breath in and a soft breath out. Let your shoulders drop. Let your face soften. You do not need to fix anything in this moment. You do not need to prove anything. Just be here, as you are. Bring your awareness to your breath. Notice its natural rhythm. is no need to change it. Just observe. And as you breathe, feel your body being supported by the ground beneath you. You have been carrying so much. Quietly and consistently. For the next few minutes, you can set that weight down. Not forever, but long enough to remember what it feels like to breathe without it. There is a version of you that showed up even when everything felt heavy. A version of you that kept going, even while falling apart inside. And maybe no one saw it. Maybe no one said, "I am proud of you." But it matters. Every silent effort matters. Every moment you chose to keep going matters. Every time you held yourself together matters. It all counts. If there is a part of you that feels heavy, with the belief that no matter what you do, it is still not enough, or that you are falling short, just pause and notice that voice for what it is. Do not fight it. Just observe it gently. And now remind yourself, I am doing the best I can with what I have in this moment. Let that truth settle within you. You are never meant to be perfect. You are meant to be real. Now bring one hand to your heart, if that feels comfortable. Imagine offering yourself the same kindness you would give someone you deeply care about. Softly say within, I choose to stand by myself with compassion, especially when things feel hard within me. I choose to meet myself with compassion, patience, and unwavering care. Let those words wrap around you. Gentleness is not weakness. It is strength in its most compassionate form. Take a moment now to truly see yourself. Not just who you are on your best days, but who you are on your hardest ones. The one who still tried. The one who did not give up. The one who kept showing up. Feel that quiet strength within you. And from that place, say to yourself, I am proud of you. Allow yourself to receive that. Take a deeper breath in. And slowly exhale. As you return to your day, carry this with you. You do not have to earn your worth. You do not have to wait for easier days to be kind to yourself. You are already worthy. Even here, even now, and on the days that feel hardest to love. That is when you need your own gentleness the most.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Thank you. So AOC and apparently one or two other people have gone ahead and told the military they don't have to obey illegal orders. We get this again. The point of this is, of course, to try to create chaos and to assert control of the narrative, the story. Also, President Trump brought this on himself because if he had declared war, if he had gone to Congress, demanded a declaration of war, and gotten a war declaration from Congress, then what AOC was doing would be treason. She could be prosecuted for treason. So could many of the news outlets that are doing pretty much the same thing. So this is, again, a practical reason, not just a legal reason, but a practical reason to make sure that if you're going to commit combat troops, you get a declaration of war first. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Jordan Peterson.
Part of spiritual development is to recognize the satanic tendencies that characterize you and to fully wrestle with them and to integrate them. That's the thing. It's not so much to cast them away. It's to transmute them. And you can see the difference between people who've done that and people who haven't, at least to some degree, because people who haven't integrated the shadow at all are naive. And you can tell that when you look at them, and you can tell that when you talk to them. And because they're naive, they're often resentful as well because they get taken advantage of. And someone who's integrated that more, they're dangerous in the martial arts sort of way, which is they're dangerous, but they don't have to use it because their presence radiates implicit potential for havoc, and that's really necessary. It's one of the things that gives people self-respect.
If you're harmless, you're not virtuous. You're just harmless. You're like a rabbit. A rabbit isn't virtuous. It just can't do anything except get eaten. It's not virtuous. If you're a monster and you don't act monstrously, then you're virtuous. But you also have to be a monster. Well, you see this all the time. Harry Potter's like that too. It's like he's flawed, he's hurt, he's got evil in him. He can talk to snakes, man. He breaks rules all the time. All the time. He's not obedient at all. But, he has a good reason for breaking the rules. And if he couldn't break the rules, him and his little clique of rule-breaking, troublemakers, if they didn't break the rules, they wouldn't attain the highest goal. So it's very peculiar, but it's a very, 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 very common mythological notion. The hero has to be a monster, but a controlled monster. Batman is like that, it's everywhere. It's the story you always hear.
If you're going to be a fighter, you have to want to win. And you have to want to hurt people. Not for the sake of hurting them. That's what makes you different than an evil person. But you have to have that capacity. You have to develop that. And, that's the step on the way to enlightenment, weirdly enough, because that isn't what people think. People have been fed this diet of pablum, rights and impulsive freedom for so long. There's just an absolute starvation for the other side of the story. There are no rights, technically speaking, without responsibilities. And all we've had for 60 years is a dialogue about rights. Well, that leaves a hole on the other side of the story. And it's a hole that's in people's hearts, essentially. Because responsibility, well, perhaps that's not more important than rights. Like I said, they're part and parcel of the same formula. But it's in responsibility that most people find the meaning that sustains them through life. It's not in happiness. It's not in impulsive pleasure. Those things blow away at the first ill wind. But to adopt the responsibility for your own well-being and to try to put your family together and to try to serve your community and to try to seek for eternal truths and to live them, that's the sort of thing that can ground you in your life enough so that you can withstand the difficulty of life. And when you tell people that, especially when you include yourself in the audience, let's say, and you're not finger waving from above, then everyone knows that it's true. There's been this attempt to identify masculine competence and power, let's say, but mostly competence with tyranny, and that's very, very hard on young men. It's also hard on young women, for that matter, but it's very helpful for people to hear that they should make themselves competent and dangerous and take their proper place in the world, because it's the alternative to being weak. And weak is not good. The people who shoot up the high schools, they're weak. They're weak. And life is a very difficult process, and you're not prepared for it unless you have the capacity to be dangerous. That doesn't mean that you should be cruel. It doesn't mean any of that. There's a statement in the New Testament, the meek shall inherit the earth. But the meek isn't well translated. It means something more like, those who have swords and know how to use them but keep them sheathed will inherit the world. That's a way better way of thinking about it. You have to be powerful and formidable and then peaceful, in that order, right? And that's not the same as being naive and weak and harmless, which is what young men are being encouraged to be. It's like, that's a very bad idea. It's a very bad idea, because naive, weak, and harmless means that you can't withstand the tragedies of life. You can't bear any responsibility. You'll end up bitter. And when you get bitter, then you get dangerous. You don't treat adult men as if they're infants.
But the young men really need to hear this more, I think, is that you should be a monster. Because everyone says, well, you should be harmless, virtuous. You shouldn't do anyone any harm. You should sheath your competitive instinct. You shouldn't try to win. You don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too assertive. You want to take a back seat and all of that. It's like, no. Wrong. You should be a monster. an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it. Someone who is incapable of cruelty is a higher moral being than someone who is capable of cruelty. And I would say, and this follows Jung as well, that that's incorrect, and it's dangerously incorrect, because if you are not capable of cruelty, you are absolutely a victim to anyone who is. And so part of the reason that people go watch anti-heroes and villains is because there's a part of them crying out for the incorporation of the monster within them, which is what gives them strength of character and self-respect, because it's impossible to respect yourself until you grow teeth. And if you grow teeth, then you realize that you're somewhat dangerous, or maybe somewhat seriously dangerous, and then you might be more willing to demand that you treat yourself with respect and other people do the same thing. And so that doesn't mean that being cruel is better than not being cruel. What it means is that being able to be cruel and then not being cruel is better than not being able to be cruel. Because in the first case, you're nothing but weak and naive. And in the second case, you're dangerous, but you have it under control. And, a lot of martial arts concentrate on exactly that as part of their philosophy of training. It's like, we're not training you to fight. We're training you to be peaceful and awake and avoid fights. But if you happen to have to get in one, and I guess the philosophy also is that if you're competent at fighting, that actually decreases the probability that you're going to have to fight, because when someone pushes you, you'll be able to respond with confidence, and with any luck, and this is certainly the case with bullies, with any luck, a reasonable show of confidence, which is very much equivalent to a show of dominance, is going to be enough to make the bully back off. And so the strength that you develop in your monstrousness is actually the best guarantee of peace. And that's partly why Jung believed that it was necessary for people to integrate their shadow. And he said that was a terrible thing for people to attempt, because the human shadow, which is all those things about yourself that you don't want to realize, reaches all the way to hell. And what he meant by that was it's through an analysis of your own shadow that you can come to understand why other people are capable, and you as well, of the sorts of terrible atrocities that characterized, let's say, the 20th century. And without that understanding, there's no possibility of bringing it under control. When you study Nazi Germany, for example, or you study the Soviet Union, particularly under Stalin, and you're asking yourself, well, what are these perpetrators like? Forget about the victims. Let's talk about the perpetrators. The answer is they're just like you. And if you don't know that, that just means that you don't know anything about people, including yourself. And then it also means that you have to discover why they're just like you. And believe me, that's no picnic. So that's enough to traumatize people, and that's partly why they don't do it. And it's also partly why the path to enlightenment and wisdom is seldom trod upon, because if it was all a matter of following your bliss and doing what made you happy, then everyone in the world would be a paragon of wisdom. But it's not that at all. It's a matter of facing the thing you least want to face. This is an interesting thing about the integration of the shadow, because recognizing yourself as the locus of evil, let's say, actually, in some sense, gives you far more respect for yourself, strangely enough, because the same respect that you might have for a wild animal or even a monster. So then maybe you learn to treat yourself differently. Like, I think this is particularly true with regards to the discipline of children. If you know that you're a monster, and that will manifest itself in your life, consciously or unconsciously, and if it's unconsciously, it's not good, then you become better at disciplining children. And the reason for that is that you don't want to expose them to your dark side. And so if they behave and don't provoke you, which means they'll also behave for other people, then the monstrous part can stay in abeyance, and then that's great. But if you don't understand yourself as capable of wreaking havoc, and that can be the kind of havoc that unfolds over decades, right? Because if you're going to abuse a child, it's the primitive form of abuse is the physical abuse. The sophisticated form of abuse is the continual undermining of the child's courage across perhaps their entire life. And that there's a terribly monstrous element to that. And if you're not respected properly,
by the child, say, you will absolutely take revenge on them. And, in some sense, that's the whole Freudian psychoanalytic story. It's not all of it. But you either have that or it has you. Those are the options. And you don't become safe by being castrated.
And that was Jordan Peterson. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.